Hello, I'm Lugatorix and welcome to my Gaul faction guide for Rome Total War. Today we're going to be having a look at the campaign strategy, buildings and the units available in this campaign. Now Gaul is a barbarian faction. It covers regions of northern Italy and modern day France and a bit of Spain as well. So they have actually quite a large starting territory, but very basic starting army. It's strong close combat infantry but limited cavalry, which is a fair enough assessment, I would say. Gaul is certainly not the weakest barbarian faction. It's not the strongest either. I would say it's weak because of its starting position though. It's got a lot of potential enemies. Rome, the Julii in particular, are an enemy. Spain is often an enemy. Germania and Britain. They're all potential enemies which will probably attack you at some point and probably very close to the beginning of the game. So it's very easy to get several different enemies at once, and that causes trouble particularly early in the game, so I'll discuss about that a little bit. But yeah, first of all we're going to have a look at the units available in the campaign, because it's quite an interesting army, I'd say. Okay, so this is the army, and as you can see there's actually not a huge amount of units available. If you look at a Roman army for example, there's a solid like 10, 12, 13 more units it seems. So yeah, not a hugely diverse army, but some pretty cool units in nonetheless. Of course, barbarian peasants are pretty much useless, so it's the same story for every faction. Peasants are not great at all, only use them as a last resort basically. Now the warband is commonplace for barbarian factions. They cannot form a phalanx, they are just basic spearmen, but they don't even have combat bonus versus cavalry, so they're not even that good. Attack of 7, defense of 10 is very average stats. They're not bad, they're just average stats. But they do have bonuses like expert hiding in woods and combat bonus in woods or snow, because that's where they originate from. But of course, as barbarians, they may charge out orders. So disorderly unit, which probably will break relatively quickly. You know, they are alright very early in the game, but very quickly you go against particularly Romans, who will just decimate these guys. So, you know, I would use them at the beginning, but you're not going to be using them in the mid or late game at all. Druids. Well, Druids look good on paper. 13 attack, 14 defense, excellent morale, very good stamina, but only 32 in a unit. And what that means is they just get swarmed pretty easily. They're not that useful in battle. In battle, you need numbers. Yes, good quality troops are nice, but if there's only 32 of them, it's not going to be that effective in battle. I compare these guys to Arcani in the sense that it's kind of similar. They look good on paper, but in reality, who actually uses them? Druids aren't that useful in my opinion. But excellent morale is pretty cool nonetheless. Naked Fanatics. We spoke about this last week with the Germanians. Very, very similar. They have a good attack, but a not very good defense by virtue of the fact that they are indeed topless. So, yet not very good if you don't want to get stabbed too badly. Going topless just isn't very good for not getting stabbed, if you get me. Good morale though, may charge out orders because they are typical barbarians. They're solid, they will scare people, they will shock people, but I don't know, you know, are they really that effective at standing up? Not particularly. This is the weakness of the Gauls, is their defence, and that is characterised particularly next by the swordsmen, who have got a defense of 12 admittedly, but no armour bonus because he's not got a shirt on. I don't know what he's thinking. And it's probably pretty cold in France as well, so I don't know if that's very useful. But attack of 10, defense of 12. Swordsmen certainly are a step up from warband. There's no doubt about it. They're better attack, better defense, better morale, good morale. They're still disorderly. They might charge out orders, but they are a million times better than the warband. You can tell the difference. These guys are more likely to stand up to Romans, but what will more stand up to Romans is chosen swordsmen, obviously, because they have actually armour on them, which is good. They're not topless, but they have excellent morale. They're well armoured, as I just said, good stamina, an attack of 13 and a defense of 17. Finally, a unit with good defense, which is numerous. Chosen swordsmen are a very, very solid unit. Their attack is a little bit underwhelming, but no, I do like the chosen swordsmen. But even then, the finest close combat infantry still may charge out orders. It's a very disorganised army, but this is a pretty cool unit. They will stand up to Romans, not like urban cohort, but they're a pretty solid unit nonetheless. Skirmisher warband, pretty generic, but missile attack of 9 is pretty good for a javelin man's skirmishers, so that's pretty solid. 6 attack, 3 defense. They're not meant for melee combat, but again, they can hold their own a little bit in a melee fight. Fast moving, bonus versus elephants, but yeah, missile attack of 9, that's pretty cool. The Gauls probably needed that bonus versus elephants when Hannibal came over, but whatever. Forester Warbands, these are, again, I would say it's a pretty solid missile unit. The reason is, the missile attack of 11 isn't anything particularly special, but a melee attack of 11, defense of 7 and excellent morale means they're actually good in the melee, which means they're so much more useful than most archer units, because most archer units will just crumble as soon as they've lost their arrows. They become useless in a fight. These guys aren't useless, in fact they're almost as good as the spear warband, normal warband. So these guys are a pretty solid unit, but you have to work quite hard to get up to the Forester warband. Unfortunately you cannot get them straight away. War dogs next, or warhounds it says here. Good attack, not very good defense because they're dogs. Used to scare people and chase off animals and all that. You know, a relatively generic unit, but pretty solid nonetheless. Now we discover, though, the weakness of the cavalry, which is that Barbarian Cavalry I don't like at all. I think they're useless. It doesn't say they have poor morale here, but from what I have witnessed in the short time that I played my Gaul campaign, it was sort of like a practice campaign. These guys weren't good. They didn't hold their own, they don't have good defense, they don't do any damage. So I wouldn't recommend Barbarian Cavalry at all, to be honest. I wouldn't recommend it. They're just not a solid unit. The next unit, of course, is Barbarian Noble Cavalry, which is the better variant, and these guys are better. Good morale, attack of 9, which isn't that good, it's a bit underwhelming, but charge bonus 7 makes it a bit better. Defense 15 is solid. These guys can hold their own a little bit more, but again, it takes quite a lot of training and stuff to get up to Barbarian Noble Cavalry, so don't know, you know, the cavalry is a weakness of the Gauls. Indeed, they're definitely better with their close combat infantry, as the game said. Next up, Barbarian Warlord. Well, the Warlord is solid at the beginning, 12 attack, 13 defense. This is going to be your main cavalry. Good stamina, excellent morale, but of course, the post-Marian Barbarian Warlord, the attack of 12, the defense of 16, it's a much more solid unit. This is as good as Gaelic cavalry gets, but it still isn't that amazing, even for a general. A general had to have attack 12, a little bit underwhelming in my opinion, but still, obviously, it's a general unit, so it's going to be pretty solid. So anyway, that is just what my opinion is on the Gaul army, and now we'll have a look at the introduction video and the campaign strategy.
Before my grandfather's grandfather was born, this was our land. These are good places. Our gods live here, in the trees and rivers. They watch over us. We are happy. We hunt. We love. We have families, homes, a good life. But sometimes we must fight. The Romans disturb the gods. They burn the forests. They take what is ours, wives, children, land. And the Romans talk of how they will help us and protect us. They put us to sleep with golden promises. When we wake, all we had is gone, stolen. They take our sons and turn them into little Romans. Ha! So we fight to keep what is ours. What must stay ours. There can be no peace. No peace with Romans, men of stone and iron and lies. There can be only war.
Okay, so here we are. This is the starting position for Gaul. Now, as you can see, there's quite a few settlements around, but you can't really see a lot of what is actually around in terms of who the enemies are, potential enemies, and there's quite a few of them. So I'm going to turn off the fog of war just so I can show you what is actually going on around the area. I wouldn't normally play with the fog of war off, of course, but I have to this time. Not play, but I have to show you to turn off the fog of war. So, first of all, you can see there's one British settlement up here. There's several Germanian settlements along here. There's a rebel settlement called Lugdunum, I believe, yep, and Massilia. And then we have one settlement in France, which is surrounded by Spain. So lots of potential enemies, and of course the Julii with Arretium, Ariminum, and Segesta. Now, what to do? Well, you can deal with this several ways. I would try and ally with one of them. There's not a lot of point with allying with Germania, the Julii, because they're going to attack you. They're going to attack you anyway. I promise they will attack you. It's just a matter of time. But Germania, if you halt a war with Germania, they might go and attack the Dacians or the Scythians next. So I would try and get a diplomat over and try and sweeten the Germanians and try and get an alliance with them, because they're annoying to fight. They're quite a tough faction, and also you don't want to be fighting everyone at once. The same sort of goes for Spain. If you can get an alliance with Spain, go for it, because it means Numantia is safe from the Spanish. So yeah, that's what I would do, and then maybe you can focus on Carthage a bit more, because that's not an easy town to take. The Cordoba, I think is it Cordoba? Yes, it is indeed. So yeah, that's what I would do. Try and ally with either Germania or the Spanish, or both preferably. It means you can focus on the British and the Julii. Now, first of all, if you look at my first ever episode on YouTube, you'll realise the first thing I did was attack the British here. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to kick the British off the mainland. They have one naval force. You can go and attack the naval force. Problem is, you're likely to lose. If I just quickly show you, it's a 1-in-1 chance. I lost it when I did it. Yeah, I swear you always lose it. It's like it's rigged that you lose it and then you lose your navy. So you could try and isolate Britain through defeating its navy. The problem is you've got no ports. This is your only naval force. So that is an issue. But if you do manage to win that naval battle somehow, then Britain is stuck because they have no navy. And if you kick them off here, they're done for. So yeah, kick the British out. Then you've got to stem the Julii as much as you can. If you can try and take Segesta before they do, that's pretty cool. But either way, go for the throat. Go for Arretium, go for Ariminum. Cut them down as possible. You look to them and Massilia you can get later. They're rebel settlements, they're not going to go anywhere. Focus your resources from Alesia, Mediolanum, Patavium and Narbo Martius all on the Julii. Really focus on them. You should be able to take them down. Then you can go for settlements like Segesta, Juvavum, Segestica, and then start focusing down on the Romans. You don't want to let the Romans expand too far. You don't want them to get technologically advanced, in which they start producing like Praetorians and stuff. Stem the attack while it is early and make sure that they don't get too strong is my main advice. And that's it for the Gauls. Don't get into too many fights. Focus on particular enemies. The British and the Julii is who I would focus on. Now, let's have a look at the buildings that are available. That's the wrong button. So here we go. The buildings that are available for the Julii are the general basic buildings, barracks, trader stables, taverns. Then we have 4 different times temples. This is going to be the same. Yeah, this is weird. If you watch my Spanish faction guide, you will see the same glitch, the Temple of Horse. So if you want to know the explanation for that, or a partial explanation, then yeah. But ignore these two. They don't exist. It's a glitch. But yeah, if you want to go and see what I say about that, go and look at my Spanish faction guide. The same thing happens. Temple of Horse, Awesome Temple. It does not exist. So I'm going to ignore those two at the end. These are the temples. They all have 3 levels to them each. There's 4 temples: Tutatis, I'm sorry my pronunciation is wrong, Epona, Abnoba, and Isus. The temples at their highest level: Tutatis, I don't know. Public order bonus, light weapons, experience bonus +2, which is very solid, and the training of naked fanatics with experience +1 already. This is pretty good if you have like a military base and you want to upgrade light weapons, but the Gauls use a lot of heavy weapons, so kind of seems odd that they have an option for light weapons. Heavy weapons would be a lot more useful, but that's just how it works, oddly enough. The Temple of Epona, which is the goddess of horses, I believe. Yes, it is. There you go. Public order bonus of 15%, but +3 experience bonus. That's a huge experience bonus. It's less diverse than Tutatis, but +3 experience is really solid. Abnoba, +3 to missile weapons. So if you put that particularly on the Forester Warband, that's scary. That's scary. and then plus 15% public order bonus. Seems to be a bit of a commonality there, but this is really for the missile weapons, of course. And then Aegis is just for public order, 15% for both of them, and the training of Druids, which I don't think are that useful. Druids aren't that special indeed. So there you go. That is my Gaul faction guide. Just a quick sort of a guide about the Gauls. I talk about it in more detail in my first ever episode if you want to have a look at that. But yeah, main advice: don't get into too many fights. Focus on the Romans in particular, and try and isolate the British, and try and use a bit of diplomacy to get alliances in your favour. That is my main advice, because it's going to be difficult to maintain the empire. You're not going to be able to expand too far at the beginning. You need to just focus on particular areas, and that's why I do. Don't bother taking rebel settlements. It's a waste of your resources. Take them later. Don't get into fights with the Spanish, in my opinion, and the Germanians are tough to deal with at the best of times. So that's my advice. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back with more videos very, very soon, and see you around.